This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Fighting coronavirus, China opens mega hospital built in record time. Suspected militants kill nearly 20 civilians in northern Burkina Faso. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hopes for good news as he visits Uganda. Hello and welcome. You're watching Africa Live. We're coming to you live from Nairobi. I'm Hannah Viviers. Here are more stories making headlines this hour. In business news, OPEC and a technical team to discuss the effects of the coronavirus on global oil demand. And in sport, Tanzania after the first round of the 2020 FIFA Women's Under-20 World Cup qualifiers. We begin with the latest on the coronavirus outbreak. In China, the death toll stands at 361. Over 500 people have recovered. The number of total infections in the country has surpassed 17,000. In the epicenter of the outbreak, Hubei province, there were more than 2,000 new cases on Sunday. Nearly 150,000 people across the country are under medical observation. The virus has spread to 23 other countries with a total of 152 confirmed cases. The Philippines on Sunday reported the first death outside China. It was a Chinese national who traveled from Wuhan. China's foreign ministry says 16 foreigners in China were infected with a new coronavirus pneumonia, and 2 of them have been discharged from the hospital. It also appreciates help from other countries, adding that the U.S. has not provided any substantial assistance to China. Well, now to Wuhan, where the city's first purpose-built field hospital for viral pneumonia opens today. CGTN's Tang Bo tells us more from the site.
I'm right now at Huashinshan Hospital, which was taken over by the People's Liberation Army on Sunday morning. And right now, I'm on the second floor of it, and 1,400 military medical workers are now busy doing final preparations for taking in 50 infected patients today. And let's go take a look at one of the hospital wards. And as you can see here, it's pretty much like, usually it's like 2 beds in 1 room. As you can see that the beds are ready, clean pillows, sheets, covers, and the hospital dresses are ready. And here we can see the necessary military facilities are also available. Here we can see the oxygen providing system is all perfectly set. And one thing worth noticing is that the entire hospital is covered by a very special ventilation system, that all the air we're going to breathe inside the hospital will be filtered, cleaned, and then will be, through a very negative pressure system to, get them out of the entire building to ensure that the working environment here and treating environment here for both the hospital, for doctors and patients are healthy. And there's one thing I want to show you guys is that look here. This looks like a box, but actually this is where the food is going to get provided to those infected patients. Inside there is an ultraviolet disinfection system that all the food going through in and out will go through this box, get disinfected, and then delivered to the patient. And of course, when they go outside, you have to go through this box again to secure the health environment here.
Health authorities say Chinese researchers are looking to see if 3 existing drugs can inhibit the novel coronavirus. The first, remdesivir, was originally developed for Ebola and will be tested on over 200 patients. The other 2 are chloroquine and ritonavir. Data is now being collected in clinical trials to test their effectiveness. Outside China, Thai doctors say they have seen successes in treating severe cases with a drug cocktail for flu and HIV. Earlier, we spoke to Dr. Glenn Galton, head of the University of Pennsylvania Center for Global Health, to learn more.
Remdesivir is developed by Gilead, the company Gilead. It blocks the ability of the virus to replicate its own genetic material. And this drug has never actually been approved by the FDA in the United States or in any other country. So it's a highly experimental drug, and we'll see how effective it is. Chloroquine is actually developed in the 1930s to treat malaria. What it does is it changes the acidity of vesicles within inside of your cells so that when the virus enters, the coronavirus can't go through its normal replication pathways. Is moderately effective, I would say, not spectacularly so. And the last one you mentioned is ritonavir. Ritonavir was actually developed to treat HIV. It's usually used in combination with one or two other drugs that block the ability of the virus to copy its proteins so that the new viral particles can form and be released into your body and go and infect other cells of your body and then be released to infect other people. So the short story is all of the drugs need to be tried, but the reality is there is no drug that is supremely effective in treating any coronavirus, let alone this new form.
Quarantine centers have been set up around Wuhan to help deal with the influx of patients in the city's hospitals. Confirmed cases from these areas will be then transferred to the new Huashenshang Hospital. Our reporter Xu Xingsheng visits one such center.
So this is just a regular hotel room converted to an isolation point, but they didn't make much of a modification because it's a pretty nice and well-equipped hotel already. But they put in some medical supplies like facial masks and a thermometer, and they have a brochure for the patients, for the people who have checked in, learn more about the coronavirus. So they were going to offer free meal, and the room is free of charge. And the medical surveillance is about 14 days, because that's what we learn right now. The incubation time is about 14 days. So for the first 14 days, people who actually contracted the coronavirus might not show much of a symptom. And so 5 floors inside of this hotel are already taking in people who have been in close contact with those confirmed with the coronavirus. And this specific point will take in about 70 patients. And across this district, which is the Wuchang district in Wuhan, one of the in its downtown area, there are 3 another 2 similar isolation points. So 3 in total. And I also learned from another district close to Wuchang, they have another 4 similar isolation points. So right now we know the city of Wuhan has already rolled out a 3rd batch of hospitals that can treat coronavirus. So in total, we have 27 hospitals in the city can now take in patients highly likely contracted the virus or confirmed with the virus. But still, there is a lack of hospital beds, and that's when these kind of isolation points can help reduce the burden and the pressure on hospitals right now.
Well, let's now take a look at this National Health Commission experts talking about their latest findings during this interview.
We think patients who are in critical condition had an unbalanced intestinal microecology and are therefore more susceptible to secondary infections. In most cases, patients who died did not die of virus infection but of secondary infections. So the microecological balance is important. We need to use hormone and antibiotics properly and at the same time adjust the bacteria in intestinal tract. We have extracted the nucleic acids of the virus from the feces, but we can't say the virus can be transmitted by the digestive system yet, because it's possible it was swallowed by the patient and not reproduced in the digestive system.
Well, China says it will ramp up epidemic prevention and control measures as it prepares for the post-holiday travel rush. Our reporter Ma Kei tells us more.
To deal with the post-holiday travel rush, like you mentioned, the 6 departments of China have given out their measures to deal with this kind of new challenge, because there might be chances for people catching the virus during their travels. But if there's one clear message from today's press conference, that is, do not panic. There's enough supplies of both emergency supplies and life necessities. Well, let's first take a listen from the Industry and Information Ministry.
工业和信息化部会同有关方面采取了4项措施。 Under these circumstances, our ministry is implementing 4 measures to ensure sufficient medical supplies. First, we have encouraged manufacturers to resume and accelerate production. Second, we have deployed representatives for better coordination with the manufacturers. Third, we have established a national coordination center to ensure the flow of key medical supplies. And fourth, we have been making good use of international resources.
Small and medium-sized enterprises have been motivated to make sure the supplies are adequate. And I have several data for you here. First, masks. The daily production of facial masks have reached like 20 million every day. So people don't have to worry about what they could use to cover their face to separate themselves from the virus. And second is very important, the virus reagent, which can be used to detect whether a person has catched the virus or not. And this virus reagent has, since it's been discovered, have been put into production. And now the total production has reached 770,000, which is 40 times enough for every suspected cases.
Most of the new confirmed coronavirus cases are in Wuhan. Unlike the 2003 SARS, there have been no massive outbreaks across the country. Here are the details about how it spreads, as well as the Chinese government's efforts to contain it.
A leading Chinese lung specialist is forecasting the transmission of the coronavirus.
Confirmed cases are increasing. They'll continue to go up for a while, but I don't think the trend is going to last long.
Here's the trend of the epidemic in China. On Sunday, nearly 3,000 new cases were confirmed, which brought the total number of nationwide cases to over 17,000. In the past 2 weeks, there's also been a dramatic rise in daily new confirmed cases, from less than 150 to over 2,000. However, we're also seeing a somewhat positive trend as the number of recoveries catches up. Over 140 patients recovered on Sunday, bringing the total number to 475. But how does the coronavirus spread, and how far could it reach?
Most often, person-to-person transmission happens among close contacts. It occurs mainly via respiratory droplets produced when an infected person coughs or sneezes. Besides, indirect contact with their droplets can also lead to infection.
Health officials are monitoring both infected people and their close contacts to identify more cases and better understand how the disease progresses over time. But what they cannot control are those unaware of their contact with the coronavirus, such as travellers seated in the same row as an infected person. That's when a quarantine works. A quarantine that lasts longer than the incubation period will help identify those who get infected as their symptoms appear. By monitoring these cases as well as their close contacts, more transmission can be prevented.
In Wuhan, many suspected cases or confirmed cases can only stay at home because there are not enough beds in hospitals. This is very dangerous, even if they only had mild illness. Now, Shenzhen Hospital can provide a special place for them to receive good observation and care. It's very important for them to have such a recovery process. This can also relieve the pressure of our hospitals, especially those large hospitals, which can focus on the rescue of severe patients.
Zhong says early discovery and early quarantine are the most effective ways to control the outbreak. The Chinese government has added 3 days to the Lunar New Year holiday, delaying travel and the return to daily life. Some provinces have decided to add 1 more week to the holiday, with enterprises calling for work from home. All this is aimed to slow person-to-person transmission. Nicole Ng, CGTN.
Well, it's time now for us to take a short break and return. More news, including Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hopes for good news as he visits Uganda. And we find out how one woman is telling the story of South African homes through art.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Economic data out of the country. The country's foreign currency reserves.
With a dedicated and diverse team of anchors, CGTN now brings Africa to the palm of your hand.
I'm Penina Karibe in the heart of Nairobi, which is bustling.
From everyday heroes to the continent's most powerful figures, we bring their voices to you.
We haven't changed. And this is something most of us are very excited about.
We bring you news that's changing perspectives.
I'm reporting from Nairobi City Center.
News that brings Africa to the world. CGTN. See the difference. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Well, to Burkina Faso now, where a suspected jihadist attack has left nearly 20 civilians dead in the northwestern village of Bani Seno province. This is according to local authorities. The attack comes as a reprisal after jihadists warned locals to leave the area. Many have been forced to flee their homes due to fear of further retaliatory attacks. This latest attack follows a similar one which left at least 39 people dead less than a fortnight ago. Burkina Faso is among the Sahel nations which has been struggling to contain a wave of jihadist attacks. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is visiting Uganda on a one-day trip. This is the second time in the past 4 years the Israeli Prime Minister has made such a visit. The Prime Minister's office confirmed the visit on Sunday, declining to comment further on the reason for the trip. Netanyahu is expected to meet with leaders from the region. The trip comes amid speculation in Israel that he may have forged new diplomatic ties with Uganda. Upon departure, Netanyahu said he hoped to have good news for the state of Israel by the end of the trip.
I'm leaving now for another visit to Africa. It's my 5th visit in 3.5 years. Israel is coming back to Africa big time. Africa has already returned to Israel. These are very important ties diplomatically, economically, security-wise, and it's yet to be told. Today I'm traveling to Uganda. We are strengthening ties with this country, and I hope that by the end of the day, we will have good news for the state of Israel.
To Tanzania now, where the controversial preacher linked to a stampede at a stadium in Moshi town has been arrested. The arrest comes as the death toll following the stampede rises to 21. Authorities fear this number could rise. More than 16 others were also injured. The incident happened when worshippers rushed to be anointed with what they believed was blessed oil.
As the government of this country, we shall take strict measures against him. It saddens us to see the huge number of people he managed to gather in such a small place. The worst part is when he gave them instructions to do things without caring for their safety. It was his first responsibility to assure these people's safety. We shall make sure that he is held responsible for the great loss.
The prayer went well, but when we were leaving the grounds after the prayers, he advised us to stamp on some oil which was placed at the gate as part of the blessing. Since there was a huge number of people and everyone was struggling to stamp on it, many people fell down, especially the young ones, who were stamped on by others, including myself.
On to Somalia now, where the country has embarked on a public outreach program aimed at seeking public opinion on the country's constitution. CGTN's Abdulaziz Bello attended one of the events and he filed this report.
More than 100 participants drawn from the civil society, women groups, students and persons with disabilities attended the first public outreach program aimed at seeking a public opinion on the ongoing constitution review process.
When the stakeholders are many, completing the review process becomes complicated. The Constitution is a document that spells out the rights of citizens, and this is why we're doing public outreach to regional administrations, parliament, and the public, including women and religious leaders.
The public outreach program hopes to reach all regions of the country, and by giving the Somali public a say in the constitution review process, authorities in Somalia hope to come up with a document that will be widely accepted by all sectors of society. Finalizing the review of the country's constitution is expected to be completed before the upcoming general elections next year, a critical challenge for authorities tasked with the draft document.
I came here today to listen and raise questions on the process. Young people should be aware of the Constitution, its content and the rights and privileges it offers.
If our rights are not enshrined in the Constitution, then we have no say or right over anything. We are here as physically challenged members of the society to know what the government is offering to us.
The talks in Mogadishu mostly focused on the federal structure of governance and how the country's capital will be governed, as either a federal state or maintain its status as the seat of the central government. Critical issues including the electoral model, power sharing and resource sharing was also discussed.
A lot of compromises have to be reached on matters related to politics between the national government and regional administrations, including finance, taxation and resource sharing. The campaign also hopes to educate people on their constitution and its benefits.
The United Nations has over the years pumped in millions of dollars towards the realization of the document that many say will help solve decades-long grievances affecting various sectors of society. Abdul Aziz Bilo, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
To Nigeria now, where almost 32% of teenagers between the ages of 15 and 19 either have children or are currently pregnant. The figures continue to soar. The UN has been pushing for comprehensive sex education for what it says will reduce teenage pregnancies and sex-related health issues. But societal norms and traditions may be slowing its implementation in the country. CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam has more on that report.
A team of health volunteers teaching teenage girls on reproductive health and personal hygiene. Teenage pregnancy has become a public health emergency in Nigeria, as in most African countries. But not much attention is being paid to it. More than 31% of girls are either pregnant or already mothers. That's why the UN wants comprehensive sexuality education integrated into the national curriculum.
It's something that should be, it should be introduced for the benefits, of the children, both male and female, to educate them about not just their bodies, but, their ability to blend in society and to, work against social vices.
If you teach children age-appropriate information as to the parts of their body, if they understand what the parts of their body is, it's easier to ward off sexual violence.
Many more teens and younger children are already sexually active in Nigeria. Sexual activities are fueled by child marriage, peer pressure, and exposure to the internet. Adults in Africa shy away from talking about sex with their children, so youngsters aren't equipped with the right information to protect themselves.
The basic practice, especially even fueled by the regulatory bodies, and I would use the Nigerian Broadcast Commission as one of the regulatory bodies. The basic practice that is enabled by these regulatory bodies is that it makes you feel guilty about telling children the names of their private parts. And so in the event of violation, you hear children tell us things like, uncle put his banana in my mouth. Banana is for consumption. So when you force parents to describe a penis using banana, it means that you have forced them to give wrong information to the child.
The surge in cases of teenage pregnancies make it clear that the status quo should change. A deliberate mind shift and action plan is required to begin to educate youngsters on the dangers of adolescent sex. For now, Experts say it's about time the government and other key players in the education sector invest in comprehensive sexuality education and support teacher training programs across the country. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
Your business news is coming up after the break. Here's what you can expect. OPEC and a technical team to discuss the effects of the coronavirus on global oil demand. And Old Mutual's former CEO takes his fight back to the courts in South Africa.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Time now for your business news. The former chief executive of Old Mutual, Peter Moya, has appealed against a court ruling that overturned his temporary reinstatement at the firm. This is expected to drag out in a damaging court battle with the South African insurance group. Moya was suspended in May and dismissed shortly afterwards by Old Mutual in a dispute over an alleged conflict of interest. His temporary reinstatement was subsequently overturned this month following an appeal by Old Mutual. The court's decision to overturn Moya's temporary reinstatement also removed a block on the insurer from looking for a new CEO. Although Moya could lose his appeal, he plans to pursue a longer case against his dismissal to seek permanent reinstatement or damages. The Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and its allies are set to meet in Vienna on Tuesday and Wednesday. They'll be analyzing oil demand since the outbreak of the coronavirus epidemic. The Joint Technical Committee is expected to recommend either an extension of current supply restrictions beyond March or implement deeper output cuts. Global oil prices have dropped to lowest levels since October following the outbreak. In addition, concerns are looming over a potential slowdown in crude demand. The World Health Organization recently declared the outbreak of the coronavirus a global health emergency. More than 300 people have been killed following the outbreak of the epidemic. Business owners are navigating the complexities of maintaining operations following the coronavirus outbreak. To ensure the smooth sailing of operations, hygiene and sanitation guidelines have been put in place. CGTN's reporter Omar Khan sat down with one foreign restaurant owner in the city of Guangzhou to hear his views on the situation and the importance of enforcing preventative measures.
Welcome to Bandidos. May I tell your temperature? Okay, please wash your hand, please.
It's not something you hear every day when arriving at your favorite restaurant, but in one of Guangzhou's top Mexican cantinas, all necessary precautions are being taken amid the coronavirus outbreak. For restaurant owner Rob Turnbull, it's not only about keeping customers safe, but also his staff.
Trying to get everyone masks, checking the temperature of everyone who comes in, having everyone wash their hands. We sterilize the whole restaurant a couple times a day just to, make them feel safe and comfortable as much as the customers can.
When we took this footage on February 2nd, the province of Guangdong had 632 confirmed cases of the coronavirus, with 179 of those in Guangzhou. In this difficult time, misinformation has circulated on social media platforms, generating unnecessary hysteria, which Turnbull disagrees with and feels people shouldn't buy into.
Well, I mean, everyone should be proceeding with caution, but I don't see the cause of the hysteria. I feel like it's maybe a little overblown. The last couple of days, I've seen a little bit more optimism anyways. People are starting to get a little bit more open to going outside, and like there hasn't been any, let's say, shortage on water. Yeah, there was a bit of a run on veggies, but there's already, every Chinese New Year, difficulties in getting products like vegetables and fresh meat.
This Canadian entrepreneur has lived in China for nearly 2 decades and has raised his family in Guangzhou. He acknowledges the potential losses businesses will suffer over the next few months.
I think there's going to be it's going to be a really tough month for a lot of restaurants. If this doesn't blow over soon, or if there doesn't start to be a lot more optimism in the market with people going out, like people who have places in malls, the malls are empty, zero, like no one in them really. So we're lucky with like a bit of a street front presence here. It's going to be really tough. I think there'll be a lot of places that close. It's just too tough.
Fortunately, Turnbull and his family haven't experienced any fallout from the epidemic. When asked if he has any plans to uproot and leave China, he says he won't.
Not really. There was a couple days at the beginning where I took a few extra precautions, stocked up on some water and some dry goods, I guess. But then like 2 or 3 days later, I was like, the logistics in China is amazing, right? Like that's one thing that's really done well here is logistics, and things are starting to kick back in. Now you can get fresh vegetables again. Water was never an issue. Obviously electricity, internet, all that stuff's still going strong. It's none of the things that would worry me have happened. So like if things got worse and worse and worse, it'd have to get quite a bit worse for me to want to go. My life is here, business is here, but I don't know, family's here.
Omar Khan, CGTN, Guangzhou.
India's government has tabled its annual budget in Parliament amid the country's worst economic slowdown in over a decade. The budget aims to revive growth and boost private consumption. But the government is also trying not to worsen a fiscal deficit. Neha Punya explains.
The Indian government is under pressure not just because of slowing growth at home, but because recently the IMF also blamed India for bringing down global growth as well. With the government desperate to turn the economy around, this budget focused on putting more money into the hands of people, creating more jobs and boosting India's farming sector, which still employs about half of its 1.3 billion people. The government also plans to spend nearly $40 billion for farmers over the next 1 year, giving them access to solar-run equipment, local storage units, and on setting up a railway and air transport system for fresh produce. Job creation is another priority, with unemployment in India at a 4-decade high. The government has proposed apprenticeship programs for graduates with urban local bodies. It's planning to spend $14 billion on the education sector in the long term as well, and also conduct a GMAT-like exam to woo Asian and African students to Indian universities. In the short term, however, the government is hoping that a 20% increase in capital expenditure on infrastructure projects will create more jobs. It's working on setting up 6,500 projects like highways, airports and ports. Reduced personal tax rates have also been welcomed by the common man, and the government's plan to sell its stake in state-run companies has been lauded by experts. But the challenge ahead for the government is stark. Its fiscal deficit is expected to touch 3.8% this year against the target of 3.3%, which means the government will have to raise sufficient funds to bankroll all of its commitments. And the government has also projected a nominal growth of 10% this year, but experts say that's an unrealistic target. Neha Punya, CGTN, New Delhi.
A recent survey shows that more than half of the retail transactions in Venezuela are done using the US dollar. And for those who use it, it's one way to cope with hyperinflation. Mary Trini Mina reports from Caracas.
The routine for Albani Barco on market day, taking stock of what she needs, and then counting out the dollars she has saved in a box above the refrigerator. Like most people here, she pays for her groceries with dollars.
One of my daily routines is knowing the price of the dollar, deciding how much I will change and looking for the price in the black market to buy things every day.
Barco works as a resident anesthesiologist in a public hospital where she is paid in bolivars. She converts them into dollars as quickly as she can.
When you don't have an income in the currency that's most used in your country, that puts you in a difficult position. You always have to be buying and selling dollars to survive.
Venezuelans are using dollars to buy groceries, washing machines, real estate, and just about everything in between, as Venezuela's official currency loses its value.
The bolivar depreciated more than 90% last year, and according to the Venezuelan parliament, hyperinflation reached 7,000%. For some merchants, that has meant reprinting price lists in bolivars several times a week.
This Caracas restaurant is advertising, "Eat here for $1." And the customers could buy their burgers using hundreds of thousands of bolivars must pay with a $1 bill.
It's come full circle. I pay in dollars, you pay me in dollars, you receive change in dollars, and it works as a new economy because the bolivar has lost its value.
In Venezuela, the official currency is the bolivar, but the US dollar is tolerated. Economists say, in practice, the dollar is used in nearly half the retail transactions in the capital, and even more transactions outside it.
You don't need to be an economist to know that the value of the bolivar in the future will be less than it is today or what it was yesterday.
On this market day, Albani Barco spent $7. She says she's counting on remittances from her brothers outside the country so she can cope with the informal dollarization of Venezuela. Maritrini Mena, CGTN, Caracas.
Time now for us to take a break, but here's some heartwarming stories that are coming up when we return. Find out how one woman is telling the story of South African homes through art.
Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes. The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Panata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Well, it's time now for some of those stories that make you smile. We started in South Africa, where Dada Kanyisa, who is also known as the Mighty Whale, is a Cape Town-based artist whose work is focused on telling the story of the South African home. Kanyisa doesn't necessarily seek to be different. However, her style of art has benefited from its authenticity. Kanyisa's work typically portrays the daily lives of ordinary South Africans, often joyful, friendly, and constantly finding ways of survival. CGTN's Julissa Jamela attended Kanyisa's latest exhibition at the Stevenson Arts Gallery and filed this story.
Stevenson is a gallery that is based in Cape Town and Johannesburg. It deals with contemporary art from South Africa, the rest of the continent, and the diaspora. This is where Dada Kanyisa is showcasing good feelings. Good feelings is the theme of Kanyisa's exhibition. The artist tells us that good feelings foregrounds place in an unprecedented way. Figures are sculpted, waging confrontations across bar-style countertops, taking showers, taking selfies, sending voice notes, and seated at upscale restaurants.
My work has to do with people. I depict people and people in their comfortable spaces, people in the spots they drink at. It's mainly about figures and people, and really what keeps people fed, warm, and happy. That's what my practice is about.
In an industry that still primarily celebrates Eurocentric aesthetics in fine art, Kanyisa remains passionate, telling an authentic story of the South African home. The artist believes that what makes the work special is how authentic and relatable it feels.
There's a general expectation for creative practitioners of color to focus on, certain things. And we are never given the time to celebrate what makes us feel good. So I focus, that's why for this exhibition I'm focusing on feelings and good feelings, because for the show, during the production, I was making work that I want to make, and that made me feel good. So it has to do with feeling good and not having to maybe also focus on your trauma or like previous experiences or things that are not so pleasant, which I feel like most people are cornered into doing.
Kyrgyzstan uses painting, illustration, animation, and sculpting with a focus on street culture.
So the techniques are determined by the sketch that I make. So before I start a painting, I sketch it up and then try to figure out what will look best and the best way to make it and what will make it technically interesting. So that's where the choice is made, and then I'll decide whether I should use walnut, or use MDF and paint it. So most of the things are dictated by the sketch and the process as I go along. So the technical aspect ranges from like the painting to the carving and making the home, the background.
As an observer and participant in the South African socio-political terrain and the cultural scene, Kyrgyzstan acknowledges the social facts of performativity and projection and responds with a presentation of what the artist called democratized nuance. Yulisa Njomela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Nigeria's contemporary art is fast gaining traction around the world, and the hyper-realism work of one of Nigeria's artists is in demand. Eli Waduba is known for his famous sketch of Hollywood actor Kevin Hart. CGTN's Kelechi Emekelam tells us more about this young talent.
Stroke after stroke, shade after shade, and color after color. 27-year-old Eli Waduba brings every artwork to life with his pencil. The Nigerian-born hyperrealism artist makes his drawings look exactly like a photographic image. It's a passion he's exhibited from childhood.
I discovered my talent since when I was very little. Then I used to draw in my notebooks, back of my notebooks, and sometimes I had a notebook that was just meant for drawing. So back then I used biro to draw. When I was in primary school, I draw cartoons, I draw most war movies and all that.
But art wasn't a favorable career path at the time. Many artists like Eli had to drop their artworks and resort to other things to earn a living.
Another thing here is a lot of people were aspiring to be engineers, a lot of people were aspiring to be architects, a lot of people were aspiring to be medical doctors. And I was just thinking, I wasn't seeing a future in art. So I was trying to be like them.
But Eli never gave up completely. He became an internet sensation in 2019 after his skillful painting of American comedian and actor Kevin Hart went viral. The famous celebrity paid for his works and contracted Eli for more jobs, launching a childhood hobby into a lucrative international enterprise.
At first it was quite challenging trying to make it a business. Then I can take a whole month without seeing a customer. But after my recognition, the inflow was very high, and even up till now, I cannot even handle all the customers.
Now there seems to be an awakening of the world's interest in modern contemporary Nigerian art. Nigerian artists have made nearly $6 million from 9 auctions alone. The country is currently encouraging creativity and innovation as a pathway to economic independence. And Eli's story is inspiring many more young talents to take up the once forgotten career. Kelechi Emekelam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
Well, staying in Nigeria, one man has taken the term dignity of labor to a new level. He dresses in corporate attire to hawk tiger nuts on the streets of Abuja, the country's capital. Kelechi Mekalam brings us the story of Issa Ahmadu, known as the corporate hawker.
At first glance, Issa Ahmadu could pass for a worker in a corporate organization. But he's never been to school, neither has he ever worked in a corporate firm. He's popularly called a corporate hawker. He dresses up this way every day, wheeling his barrow and selling his tiger nuts, locally called aya. It's a business he has done for several years now.
I started this business 10 years ago. When I started to dress like this, many people thought that it's not my business. But as they see me continuously, they know this is my trade. I use this business to feed my family and have built my house from it.
It's unusual to see hawkers all dressed up like Issa, but he carries his look and trade with so much pride and dignity, and that has helped him grow his customer base.
Anytime people see me and the way I'm dressed, pushing a wheelbarrow, selling tiger nuts, even if they don't want to buy, they stop me and buy. I don't feel uncomfortable dressing like this because this is the image I want people to see. And I am very comfortable going about my business this way.
Issa's corporate appearance has earned him so much popularity in the nation's capital. But that's not his only marketing strategy.
He has a very nice business strategy when it comes to his aya business. First of all, he will greet you. He will ask you whether you need his aya. He will tell you that aya is nutritious and other things.
Hawking rose from the need to solve the major problem of unemployment. In the commercial capital, Lagos alone, an average $2.8 million is generated from hawking monthly. But various state and local governments have developed policies to place a ban on it, as miscreants disguised as hawkers perpetrate criminal activities. And a ban could leave many like Issa either restricted or put out of business. Kelechi Mekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
A symposium on the challenges of the restitution of African cultural heritage was held in Abidjan last week. The objective was to provide a framework for African countries demanding the return of all the works taken by foreign powers during the colonial period. Tuli Shabalala has more on that story.
The event brought together researchers, university professors and cultural experts from several West African countries. For 2 days, panelists discussed the challenges related to the restitution of African artworks.
We must prepare to receive the artwork that will be returned. This preparation requires solid documentation so that the objects receive special attention. It is also necessary to set up the necessary infrastructure and to take stock of the infrastructure that already exists and build new ones if necessary to better receive all the art objects.
Nearly 400,000 works of African art are displayed in European museums. They were looted, sold or stolen during the colonization period. African nations have been demanding for the return of the cultural artifacts.
First, we need to identify objects that are very rare and no longer found in Africa. We also need to find art objects that have been stolen. However, we are aware that if we speak directly about restitution, we know that the Belgian authorities will surely refuse. But our strategy starts with the negotiation of an inventory of all the objects in colonial museums. It is after this stage that we will think about the question of restitution itself.
There have been concerns over the maintenance and conservation of works once returned.
The case of safety is a question of responsibility.
When the country has decided to be responsible for this situation, which involves major projects such as the construction of museums with all the guarantees and international standards of conservation, we should no longer have any concerns. If the country also decides to rehabilitate existing museums through a national conservation workshop to recruit and train people in this field, everything should go well at this level. It was not a priority in the past, but now it is.
15,000 cultural objects are to be returned to Côte d'Ivoire. Most of the pieces are in museums in France, Germany, Belgium, Britain and Austria. Tuli Shabalala, CGTN.
Your sports news is coming up after the break. Here's a highlight. Tanzania after the first round of the 2020 FIFA Women's Under-20 World Cup qualifiers.